Perfect. Uno watch his as soon. What? I think I want to do dreads. Should I do dreads?
That was wild.
Would I look good with dreads?
I don't know. Maybe. I'd probably look up anything.
I have like emo hair kid now. I have emo kid hair. I mean, even Andy said, not Andy, even Eric said he had to like steal a haircut.
Yeah.
He had to sneak a haircut. I don't think my hair has ever been this long ever. This is something new.
I like it.
So I slept until 10:30, which I've never done since we moved here, I think. I think this is the latest I've ever slept.
Do you feel rested?
Yeah. Hello, Adriana. Welcome. Welcome, everyone. We have a guest who should be hopping on in just a moment. A new guest. Otherwise, if anyone else would like to join the discussion, I'm going to post the link in the chat. First name, last name. What is your actual name so I can stop calling you first name, last name? I mean, I get what you're trying to do, but let's see. That's not it. Is the audio okay? Can everyone hear okay? Where'd it go? Here we go. Oh, she's here. I forgot that you have to admit people. Okay. Invite. Copy invite link. Okay. Korenna, can you hear me? Hello? Well, her name is here at least. Okay, so I'm posting the link here in the YouTube comments if anyone else would like to jump in the show. So we have Korenna's name, but no visual and no audio. I think she said she's used Zoom before. Not sure. Are your things curing good?
Yeah.
Let me see one. Let me show the people one of them. Pick your favorite.
There's too many favorites.
Pick the most elaborate. Hello? I think I hear something. Hear somebody?
Okay, I think I just gotta turn my video on 1 second.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. If you could turn your audio up just a bit. It's pretty quiet.
I might just have to ditch my headset.
David Icke, another live interview right now. David Icke is doing another live interview. That's interesting. Okay.
Okay, so how are we for sound?
It went good for 1 second and then it went back. You're just super quiet. I can see you now.
How's that? Better?
You're still pretty quiet.
Get rid of the headset. I think I should be okay for now.
Is that the only mic that you have as an option? Are you using it?
On it.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Whatever you did right there is, well, it's
yeah,
loud.
this is good, but I'm just worried if somebody comes into the room, then he won't hear me. But I think we're okay.
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
This is better than the other one. This is, if you guys can see this is.
Holy shit!
She's been working on come say hi.
No, I can't.
Yes. She's been working on resin creations.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say it looks like one of those, crystals with the phantoms in them.
Show me. Let me see some more. Let me show some more. She just got into it like a week ago, but she's
That's awesome. They
yeah.
look really cool. I have a crystal that has it looks like a phantom to me, like in certain kinds of crystals. Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah.
So you just have like a mold or a different
Yep.
mold?
There's she got a tray that has a whole bunch of different size of basically resin containers, and you can
Yeah, they look really cool.
you just put the resin in, and then I think she said you have to kind of layer it. You can't just like plop it in and then you have to layer the
You
resin.
have to settle it. Yeah, every layer.
This is a
Oh,
ring.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, that looks fun too.
Mm-hmm.
Right on. How much does the resin because that's a lot, right? After a while, or what?
How much what?
Because it's the resin mostly that you pay for, right?
How much did you pay to
expensive, or-
get started with all this?
It looks
Oh,
fun.
everything? I
My
don't
kids
know.
would love that.
These are like 15,
Like $50 maybe altogether?
probably. Yeah.
Right, she said like $50 altogether.
Well, that's not bad. My kids would love to do something like that. I have a crystal that has, they call them phantoms, and that's what it reminds me of. The little flakes and stuff inside of
Yeah.
crystals.
You could also make
Turning these notifications off. I'm sorry, they keep coming on. Get rid of these.
I was just thinking you can make those orgonite pyramids that people make.
Yeah.
That's how they make them, right? With resin?
I think so, yeah, right?
Yeah, I think so.
And you could, people already know what those are, so you'd have like a ready audience if you made those.
Yeah, yeah.
I guess they only turned it off for an hour, that's why.
Yeah, notifications off would be good.
Yeah.
So, Korenna, welcome to the show. Normally there are more people here, but again, I slept in, so I don't know where everybody is.
Yeah, no worries. That's cool.
Do you want to tell a little bit about yourself?
Oh gosh. Where I am now, or I don't know.
Whichever you'd like, whatever you feel comfortable sharing, just to give people a little bit of an idea of where you're at.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm just going to speak from the present moment because that feels right.
Mm-hmm.
So in that sense, it's I'm starting to realize that it's a really multi-dimensional experience that, some I think are having more than others, and that's definitely the case for me. I'm kind of going through a rebirth, another one.
Yeah.
So it feels very much like, we aren't who we are. Every moment we're changing, right? So we aren't who we were even yesterday.
Right.
I look back 5 years ago and it's like, holy shit. So going from kind of that premise, I think, I incarnated into a really difficult life circumstance, and I'm sure a lot of people have, but just high drama in our family, and a lot of addiction, a lot of mental illness, a lot of secrets, a lot of you live one way publicly, everybody sees one way, you see your family that way, and there's also this other aspects going on in the background. So
yeah.
I grew up with a family of entertainers, like musicians, and so there was really that stage face that everybody saw, and then what goes on behind closed doors kind of situation.
Yeah.
So
I think most of us can relate to that.
Yeah. So I think because of that contrast in my life, I really had to understand energy, understand how to protect myself from certain situations. And so, I feel like I've been through a lot of trials so far as my relationships are concerned, both family and personal, that it's really helping me to grow and understand this, my favorite mantra or motto, or really is just a quote, Tesla's famous quote. If you want to understand the secrets of the universe, you think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Mm-hmm. And that's really come to the forefront in my experience now, where, it's really super relevant, especially with, things going on in the world stage. And it's kind of like I'm experiencing that in my life as, my life being the micro, right? And then the world stage being the macro, but it's like exactly the same thing going on internally as well as externally, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's
very holographic sort of
yeah.
my experience, especially lately.
Holographic meaning what? Are you talking about, like feeling like a simulation, or feeling like like you're living in a show?
There's definitely a matrix.
Yeah.
And, and that world stage is kind of a play more than, like if you look at the deeper aspects in the energy, it's very obvious what's going on, I think,
Yeah.
archetypes and everything, everything's kind of, we're going into 0 point,
Hopefully.
And, that to me is what it feels like anyways. Like we expand so far and then, we come back in to or in or out depending on how we look at it, I guess,
Yeah.
But we're all going back to that source of our creation, I feel. And so there's this kind of inertia sort of feeling energetically that, we're all coming back inward. We explored externally as much as we possibly could for a really long time, like an age or two,
Yep.
and in a blink of an eye in our lifetimes. But yeah, like pretty cool when we start thinking of this in terms of cycles instead of in a really linear way, which was our experience, right? So much was hidden from us. So
yeah, we went pretty far out. Andrea and I talk about it often. If you consider yourself as a piece, a fractal of the Godhead, it's like it can have any experience it wants, and probably does have every experience that's possible and impossible. But it can get very, very far out from itself, and itself just being just peace, like not any problems, probably not in any form, literally nothing, and somehow still containing all of the essence of knowing of where it's been. And it's like a pendulum that swings way, way, way out, and you can get off into hell realms and all kinds of torturous situations, and but it has to come back at some point. But it's interesting to look at, the idea, like you were saying, you have your own internal state, and then the external is your own reflected internal state.
that's
And
all us.
impossible as that sounds, it actually is that. And if you consider yourself to be on some level of enlightened, on some level of understanding and aware, if you consider that and you look outside and you see Antifa and BLM and people screaming and yelling, it's kind of like a hard pill to swallow, because that is your shit. Like, that's my shit that's out there.
It's all our shit.
Yeah.
It's all of us. Yeah.
So you can't sit there and you can't sit on your little cloud and say, "Oh, that has nothing to do with me." No, that's definitely our stuff. It's pretty ugly too.
And I think it's all these. It's basically going to be about our perception now, and kind of how we deal with that experience, right? And I've seen a lot of different responses, reactions, and myself too. I've kind of gone through that roller coaster of emotion as I'm witnessing it. But of late, especially recently, I'm feeling kind of more like a peace about it, because what had been our experience before is we would just see like little reflections of that dark, kind of shadowy stuff that nobody wants to talk about or look at, right? And now it's kind of like all coming to the surface, and it seems to be, something that nobody can avoid now. The whole planet is focused on this, and I think that's an indication of some really positive movement so far as energy is concerned, and maybe even our own human evolution, right? Like it's accelerating to that point where it's obvious and really exaggerated in the way that it is now. Then that might be a good indication of where we're at. Like, we're almost there. If it's, like a birth, if we're talking new Earth, maybe we're getting a lot closer now that it's so pronounced and obvious to everyone, right?
Yeah.
So I'm feeling a little bit more kind of like, yeah, we're almost there, like coming down the birth canal, the worst is almost over.
I
right?
hope
like,
so.
I can really relate to that as far as the divine feminine is concerned, that really rising up to, and not just in women, but maybe it's as far as percentages go, maybe women are feeling it a little more, but it's kind of like this divine feminine sort of intuitive experience a little more than it is about that linear kind of practical, logical, very mental sort of way of looking at things.
Well, that linear masculine sort of way of breaking the world down has been how we were so-called enslaved in the first place. It's and it's not even actual logic. It's actually backwards when you look at it. It's some form of the upside down, and there's a whole bunch of oppositional constructs in all of it, in the court system, in the money system, in everything. So if you actually try to use your true logical brain to look at your own predicament, if you've been through shit, and pretty much everyone has, it automatically spawns a bunch of cognitive dissonance immediately, because the whole thing is laden with lies, and it's literally impossible to navigate if you haven't seen sort of the places where we slipped further and further into the clutches of whatever the darkness is. You just have to understand that it's not any sort of a joke. It's an actual, as far as attempts to enslave in consciousness go, it's a full-blown has-been attempt to do that. While pretending that, oh, it's just this is fine, this is normal, there's nothing going on here, this is just normal life.
Yeah, I think again, it's probably going to be depending on our perspective, and some people are just kind of trying to smooth it over, and can't wait to get back to the new normal. And it's like, what does this new normal look like? Because
what was the old normal?
We were living was fucking normal.
No, there wasn't even an old normal. There's people that are really hooked into that matrix kind of reality, and I think we have, as far as humanity is concerned, a real opportunity here to, make the best of it. Let's, really look at what new normal might look like if we had some control, if we had a choice, if we feel like, now is all about chaos, then I guess that's what we're going to experience. But there's more, beneath the surface, if people are willing to do a little bit of digging and, look at some uncomfortable, truths that are surfacing now, instead of, brushing it under the rug like we did with everything else, right? That's the reason why we're all here, is because we knew this stuff was going on sort of in the background. There's a lot of corruption and everything, but nobody held them accountable, and it's people that are supposed to have the government is supposed to be working for us, right? It's supposed to be representing us and what we want. Right. And that got really out of balance. So we got to bring it back into balance. We can't just hope that somebody's going to come in and solve all of our problems and save us from our reality. We have to be participating in it, not looking for someone else to do all the work for us. Exactly, and that means releasing the thing that was buried deep in your heart and soul, which is called saviorism. Every single person has that thing that they have to break out from, even if that whole thing is embedded in almost every person. Even if you're what you would call an atheist, there's still the thing that says, like, somehow, some way, this other entity is going to take care of you, or this other thought system, or this other thing.
Yeah, it's a program. It's in our genetics. Actually, it's in our DNA.
Mm-hmm.
And that's that book that I was sharing with you last week. I don't have it up here. I think my daughter's using it right now. But the Gene Keys talks about that. Our DNA and I think that's a really powerful representation of how we can look at things being in terms of, frequency, right? Going back to the energy, frequency, and vibration is, it's all inherent within us, this shadow aspect, right? We all come in learning and growing and making mistakes, right? So we all have this dark aspect to us, the shadow aspect that we don't really want to shine light on. And then we also have, the capacity for really good in all of us. It's inherent with all of us. And so I think it's really just being aware that, there's frequency to everything, right? Mm-hmm. So even our words and how we speak to each other, everything carries a frequency. So if we understand, ourselves that way, as well as the world, the collective in that way, then, we can focus more on increasing the vibratory relationship with ourselves and with others and with the planet that we live on, and probably experience a far better reality that's in harmony with everything. Right. But we're just, looking at things and as far as, this mental construct that they built for us. It's like Einstein said, you can't, solve a problem with the same kind of thinking that created it. So, we can't think our way out of this. There's also an intuitive aspect to it that we can all feel, and so I think it's got to start with an understanding, at least a basic understanding of energy, right?
Yep.
Because, trying to think our way out of this is probably not going to work with the energies that are on the planet now. It's,
no.
The planet, I think itself is going through fourth dimensional, a shift right now, right? So all that's 3D that we see, people still attached to in these structures and systems, it's all crumbling, right? That material world that we all were a part of and living in is coming apart at the seams because, the vibration on the planet is increasing, right? We're going through a part of the solar system. I forget where all this information is from, but it makes sense to me and what I'm experiencing, what I'm feeling, right? And what I'm witnessing is like, holy shit, we really can't stay there anymore where we were.
Yeah.
We have to evolve.
Yeah.
And, and through that chaos, that process, I think we have to surrender at some point and just know that, we're going through it whether we like it or not. But it's like Eckhart Tolle says, what we resist persists, right? So a war with anything isn't actually going to work. We've got to come at it a different way. Than how we've been trying to solve problems all this time. It hasn't worked. We're seeing a lot of evidence of. So,
I think also we're being given an opportunity to do what we have not been able to do for the most part, which is actually consciously design your own life and how you move and flow through your day, as opposed to being shuttled off to school and then shuttled off to high school, then shuttled off to college, and then shuttled off to work, and they're all exactly the same thing, just pretending to be something else, which is just like this consumerism machine, right?
Yeah.
We didn't have any opportunity to sort of design our lives. And I think we're being given that.
This construct was just built for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we all took it for kind of granted, and that's just the way we do things, right? But now we can see, as the veil is falling, we can really see what, by design,
we're seeing
boxed in.
Yeah, we're seeing, I think, that this place, this world, this realm is a direct reflection of our own essence, and it's coming from the inside to the out, and that's what it is. And if you're seeing something out there that looks counter to how you feel it should be, that means it's like we're looking at our subconscious. The external here is our subconscious, right? Mm-hmm. And it's not necessarily the subconscious of what we would call set characters or NPCs or backdrop people.
Archetypes.
It's the ones who are energetically present, and they're actually here. So that's what we are inside out here. We're looking at the subconscious with our eyeballs instead of thinking about it with our minds. And if you're not aware of that, then it's going to be really confusing, because it's like the little girl who got scared of her own shadow, because, you know, she's like, oh God, this thing's chasing me, right? Mm-hmm. And that's going to continue on until you realize, until you realize it. I wanted to say hi to Candace Morris, and see if she can actually respond, because I know part of the thing that's been going on here is, you've heard of targeted individuals. Have you heard of that? Yeah. So I've seen her on Facebook quite a few times, trying to have a voice, and for the most part, whatever has been at her, and I know part of it is placebo effect and you enhance it with your own stuff, but there certainly is an aspect that is actually targeting people. So I wanted to just say hello to her and see if she's still around. That's something else that needs to be talked about. I
relate to that too. Yeah.
By the whole community, because that's another thing that's swept under the rug in broad daylight, like in front of everybody. Clearly it exists. There's thousands and thousands of people saying, like, I'm being targeted by something, I don't even know what it is, I hear voices in my head, and then so much would be able to be healed by saying, okay, all these people we've been calling schizophrenic, paranoid, maybe the government was piping something at somebody's head instead of them just being insane. Like, whatever it comes out to, you know, actually be, it's going to be far better than whatever it's been right now, which is just a lot of pretending, right?
Yeah, I think there's a really fine line between, you know, crazy and, like you say, enlightened. You know, we might have been seeing it all wrong, right? Mm-hmm. And it could be a combination of, you know, infinite intelligence, you know, coming in, but being distorted possibly by powers that we don't know about, or technologies that are being used that we aren't aware of. So it could be a combination of two or more things for sure. But I definitely can say I've experienced the feeling of being targeted energetically, for sure.
How did that feel?
You know, I think if we're aware of a level of the soul, you know, then there's a lot of things that, you know, people are starting to understand a lot more about our human souls, and maybe even a history, you know, some kind of remnants of a history that's coming through certain, you know, people with that gift, mediums or channelers or whatever you want to call them. Mm. And so, you know, with more information about our soul, we're seeing, you know, a whole bunch of people, like probably thousands by now, who are really connecting with the term starseed, or feeling, you know, connected with other people who are also feeling connected in that way, that, you know, we didn't just come here by chance or by, you know, happenstance, or, you know,
right.
And, you know, we have a history, all of us, and our soul has, you know, experiences from other times and other realms, for all we know, other solar systems, other universes, you know. Yep. So there's so much that we're learning about ourselves, but I think those of us who, you know, are coming in a little bit more awake than some, you know, I do feel we have a purpose, and it's likely a shared, you know, a collective mission, and those of us that are here to do that work probably do experience targeting of some kind, you know.
Yeah.
Whether that's just as our own soul is progressing through, you know, this human experience, or, you know, if there's, you know, actual things going on that we don't know about, right? Like, there's all sorts of stuff that's come out here in the last decade, like secret space program and all these different things. MK Ultra, we're learning so much. And so, you know, as far as I'm concerned, there's nothing that's off the table for discussion.
There's Project Looking Glass. There's the
Yeah.
yellow cube technology that supposedly can predict, patterns in 3D way far out. Even just
Stargate.
yeah,
Everything. Yeah.
if you just take the idea alone of AI possibly being sentient or whatever that could look like, it's like the way I put it when I was coming out of the sort of fog that I had been in was that it's just flipped. Whatever you thought was, whatever you were told it's pretty much just sort of flipped. So sci-fi, all the sci-fi books you've ever read, that's the reality in some sense, and then whatever they tell you is truth here is the inversion of the reality. And if you take for a moment the idea that the reality is literally all what you would call sci-fi and then everything else, and how do you give the opposite of something that is everything? It's like you literally scrunch it down into one point that basically says what the churches tell you, which is you don't deserve to exist and you need a savior. That's the bottom of the thing after it's been flipped and all that pressure is in there, right? It's like a crucible, though, because once you pop out of it, then you come out into the flip,
That's
which is
true.
it's everything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, well, coming out of duality consciousness would be just that, wouldn't it? I mean, because first we have to be really polarized, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that imbalance has to be more than we can bear, and then 0 point.
Kitty.
Hey, Kitty! I have I'm surprised.
This is Zizi. Zizi, we named her Spazin because she's half Spazzy and half Zen, but she's
beautiful. Yeah, we have 3. They're all black. That's a story in and of itself. I think they're, very, very much conscious because, I don't know, have you guys heard of or gotten into the Law of One?
I've read it. I've read a fair amount of it back raw, right?
Yeah. Well, and just going from what I learned from that about, dimensions and stuff like that, and our own consciousness in this, process of evolution that we're in from 3D, 4D, and beyond, that, our pets are two-dimensional, right, or second density. And so they're supposed to be graduating, into third density, so they're going to be humans, right, next lifetime.
I hadn't heard of that one. It's interesting.
Wicked connection with my cats where I'm like, they can sense other energies, right? And so you kind of know when you're getting that feeling that there's a presence or something that you can't explain or see, your cats pick it up, right?
Yeah,
and it's
yeah.
kind of like validation, and I sort of feel like they're my protectors in a lot of ways. Yeah, they're pretty cool.
Chris and Cherie of Beyond the Veil. Do you know them? Have you heard of them?
No.
Yeah, they run a show. They're fairly well known, but they said when they would do ayahuasca trips, because they do ayahuasca fairly often, they said their cats would like tune into the frequency of wherever they're going, and the cats were acting as like stabilizers and guides.
For real,
for the
I'm
trip.
not kidding. I don't understand any of it. I can't explain any of it, but I watch them and I'm just like, there's something going on with these cats.
Yeah.
Because they're siblings. The story is actually pretty cool about how they came into our life. We were all, so getting a little bit more into that personal part of my life. I've recently been separated from my ex, and it's, kind of one of those sort of depressing stories that you don't want to know anything like details-wise, but we were going through a lot of trauma, my kids and myself, in the last year and a half. And these cats came into our life about a year ago. My sister had them dropped off at her place because she had a mama cat that had recently had kittens. And these orphaned kittens, I think there were 6 or 7 of them originally, were dropped off with this cat of hers that was already had kittens that were just being weaned, and hoping that they would she would take the kittens on and as her own and, nurse them back to health because they were really malnourished. And so they were only about a week and a half old, and this mother cat was just not having anything to do with it because she had these older cats. So there's like 10 cats on her trying to get fed.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm not having it. And we knew that these kittens, there was a good chance that at least half of them could die. So we took 3. And so they were only about a week and a half, 2 weeks old when we brought them home. We nursed them all, like the formula and everything, and until they got on solid food. And so they've been with us, through a really, really tough time in our life where, I really understand where, for dogs and cats both, how they use them for therapy, that you can actually, I don't know how it is in the States, but here in Canada, you can get them certified and stuff for
therapy animals.
I really understand it, but especially with cats, I really feel like, they came into our life when we needed them the most, and they've helped us a lot. So
yeah, I've had cats since I was a kid. I've always been a cat person, and
yeah, me too.
I've always felt like the cats understand me more than the humans. The humans all seem sort of silly, or they all seem brainwashed to me for the most part. Not all of them, most of them seem. And the cats are a very good example of just being present. Like, they're very attentive to every single sound, right? Like everything that's going on, they're on it, and they don't seem to have much comprehension of future and past. They're just like, they're looking around all the time. They help to
keep us present, right?
Yeah.
They've really anchored us and helped a lot of, the healing and stuff that we're going through. They've been a big part of anchoring that energy for us. So, I think they're pretty amazing too. And there's a lot more too that we don't know, I'm sure. I'm excited to learn about those things though, like, what's going on behind the scenes with, energy and stuff that we can't even really perceive yet, like feel it maybe, but not see it yet, right? They can see it, and it's super cool.
Yeah. They're like little binoculars for you. You can look into it like another level or layer just through the cat's eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if you can remove yourself a little bit from all of the drama that's going on the screen outside, then
yeah, exactly.
It's like we were talking about earlier. To be able to have adventure again, and to be able to be excited about your own existence and creative, like that's what was withheld from us through all of this trauma stuff. Like, if you're with an ex who's siphoning all your energy off, or if there's some form of narcissist, what that does is it just places you in that low vibrational state, and you don't have any energy or are excited to actually live your own life or to plan what you'd like to do with your day.
It's necessary, right? Like, now I'm understanding it from that perspective, where at the time I felt really like that victim, right?
Mm-hmm.
This just isn't fucking fair. I was born into this stupid life, with this stupid, circumstances and like all of this drama. Like, what did I do to deserve this? I must be such a bad person in my last life. Like, you get really dramatic about things. Or, you can understand the gift, right? That it's actually meant to be a catalyst. It's meant, to push us out of our comfort zone and, almost force us to take our power back, right? It's do or die. Mm-hmm. In a spiritual sense. It's, there's a spiritual war going on out there in the external, but there's also one going on within us too, right? Where we just have to accept a lot of, things that our belief systems wouldn't allow us to accept about our reality, about existence, about, everything that we've been told being a lie. That's really hard to reconcile for a planet of people.
Yeah.
Right? So, we just, I think, have to be a little bit more gentle with ourselves through this process, because everyone's experiencing it in a different way, and I think we're all at a different stage, too, in consciousness and coming out of that hypnosis, right? Mm-hmm. So I just see a lot of, people like us, too, who have been on this path for a while and consider ourselves to be awake, but, kind of demeaning people who aren't awake yet and calling them sheeple and stuff like that. Like, how is that ever going to help this process, right? Like, I understand people can be really arrogant when they're not awakened, but we have to understand that cognitive dissonance. And I know we used to be there at one time too. When we were first waking up, we were like completely, dumbfounded by what we were, realizing was really going on. And I think we could just stand to be a lot more compassionate with, people who are being shaken up, right? That shaking, like we experienced through whatever traumas, like even if it's just emotional trauma, we're experiencing that on a global level now. And I think, having a little more compassion and remembering our virtues, instead of our detriments and the things that, because like, I remember you touching on some point in the conversation, it's like, we're kind of born thinking that we're sinners, like we're so fucking bad, right? Mm-hmm. And I keep hearing that too in, random conversations in threads in different places online, that the climate change even, it's sort of all designed to make us feel really bad about ourselves and, make us look really bad. Like, I hear a lot of people being so apathetic to the point of saying, like the planet needs to be saved and all this stuff, but fuck humanity, like they're a lost cause. And it's like, what are you saying? Yeah. We're part of the Mother Earth, and Gaia, and this whole thing is all connected. We can't, have one without the other,
People get fatalistic. So, it's easy to get fatalistic when it's so upside down. Like, it's so upside down if you are not very attentive to your own internal state. And if you see yourself starting to slip, if you're not on it and getting yourself back to some level of reasonable, then it's easy to slip into that and just be fatalistic. Because
it's kind of like depression is on an individual basis on that level of like, just having such, self, what is the word I'm looking for? That you just think so low of yourself, mm-hmm. That you don't want to exist anymore. It's sort of the same thing going on the macro where everybody's like looking at this like, man is to blame for everything. And it's like, well, no, there's a tiny percentage of man that's really fucking it up for everybody. But, we can bring this stuff back into balance and just take responsibility for what we didn't know about, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot to reconcile in feeling angry at that force or that, entity that oppressed us or, suppressed so much information from us for so long or used it against us. But it's all by design. Like, if we could look at things in that way, that it's, life is for us. It's not against us. Mm-hmm. We can twist it and really make it work against us, or we can use it to our advantage, right? It's all in our perception and our attitude of what, it's the attitude we adopt, and how we adapt to what's going on that really matters, in my opinion. Like, mm-hmm. Because I've been on both sides of it, right? Where I've looked at things through those glasses where it's just like doom and gloom and like, we're screwed. Like, this mm-hmm. planet is screwed. We're going to probably blow ourselves up. But I don't want to go on that timeline over there. So I'm just kind of like trying to focus my energy more harmoniously with what I'm experiencing and what I'm witnessing, right?
Yeah. I see a lot of fear mongering still amongst the aware community. I still see people, some of the people that, I wouldn't expect do that. I see this happen, and it's a little bit disappointing because I already know it's us. Like, the second you say, now the evil government has done this, and now, you know, their plan to dominate and enslave you
And we're
is
allowing it.
unavoidable. Yes, you're speaking your sigil out into the air by saying that, and yes, you're doing your part to help inch us closer to that potentiality. Why would you need to do that?
And that's
No,
where
don't do
it's
that.
key to have energy, frequency, and vibration being, you know, dominant in the way that we look at everything, right? Because it totally changes our filter. Our filter is not as distorted if we're, you know, out of that drama triangle, because that's part of the program. Like, that's part of the conditioning. They want us to do that, right? So we, you know, in order to get out of that drama triangle, we have to understand that, you know, there's a vibrational relationship to everything, even ourselves, you know, and we're just perpetuating it. It's like you're saying, you know, we're perpetuating that experience of, you know, the more thans and the less thans when we're focusing our attention that way, you know, when we're focusing on all the destruction and, you know, that there's this power it's very distorted, you know, it distorts how we are perceiving this whole experience, you know, and taking responsibility for what we see, you know, as the external, you know, what's going on out there, just taking responsibility for it, accepting it, allowing it to be as it is right now, but knowing that it's going to change too is a really good, like, at least, you know, first step in being able to heal. And I don't know, I think in a lot of ways, you know, in the present moment, it's what we say it is, right?
Yeah, in every single way. It's not. That's just what it is. But if you have that viewpoint and you try to have a conversation with someone who thinks that the world is something separate from us, then they're going to be like, they'll either accuse you of being blasphemous and sacrilegious because you're basically saying you're God, or they just won't understand what you're talking about. They'll be like, what are you talking about? Like, science describes the world, and I don't understand what you're saying. There's some sort of
disconnect.
Yeah. I have a Michelle saying hello. She's, I believe, from Canada also. Would you mind sharing you don't have to share your actual city, but
I'm in Lake Country, BC.
Okay.
Canada. So about 5.5 hours east of Vancouver.
Okay. Yeah, I have a.
We're kind of south. We're pretty close to the border, actually.
Okay, because you're the same time zone as us, right? Yeah. We're
pretty close to Osoyoos. I don't know if you guys know what that is.
What is it?
What town that is stateside? Osoyoos.
Osoyoos? Mm-mm.
Yeah. I don't know where your guys' most, like, your closest city that, you know, everyone knows about south of the border there, but Osoyoos is our side, so.
Oh, as far as, like,
border.
what, like Washington? What's the closest one? Is that what you're saying?
I think it's, we're just...
Walla Walla, maybe? I don't even know.
Pardon?
I don't know any I don't know any cities in Washington. Could look it up.
I think it's like, there's one that starts with a T that looks like it's maybe, we're in the Okanagan.
Seattle, maybe?
Valley. So, I know there's an Okanagan on your guys' side of the border too, it's just spelled differently. Mm-hmm. So we're in the Okanagan Valley. It's really beautiful. It's really dry and hot in the summer. Like over 100 degrees usually in the summer, and in the winter we have pretty mild winters. Not like Vancouver where they hardly ever see snow. We get snow, but it's mild. It's pretty warm.
Nice.
It's beautiful.
How is it right now? Is it raining outside?
No.
How is it right now? How is the weather right now?
It's shit right now. It's been shit for like over a week. We've had a lot of rain, which is really unusual for the last 3 years. We've been fighting like forest fires really early on, very much like California. And
I visited
really hot here.
I visited Canada 2 summers ago, and it was
Oh, you were in Kelowna, right?
I was in Kelowna, Lake Powell. I visited
Yeah.
Lauda and a guy named Big John. I don't know where he went since then, but he's a good guy. But it was fire the entire time. Like it was during those California, wildfires.
Yeah.
And, the first 8 days of the trip were I couldn't see anything. I couldn't even see Canada, and then finally it cleared up like the last 2 days. So I got to see a little bit of Canada, and then I got to see like Washington, on the way back.
Yeah, that was our experience when we moved here. Everything was on fire. Like, we moved from Alberta 3 years ago, and when we got here, it was so smoky. Like, you couldn't even enjoy the summer, even though my memories of summers here are really awesome, right? Like, we have lakes and orchards and vineyards. It's really beautiful here in the summer, but not the year that we got here, or the year after. 2 years in a row, there were just major fires. Here so far, we've had a lot of thunderstorms, but not a lot of lightning strikes as far as I know. So hopefully some of these fires are kind of under control from the last couple of years, because it was, pretty wild around here.
I think there's a lot of geoengineering going on. There's a
I
lot of
think
that.
I think there was, and this is really good evidence of that going back into, appropriate hands and powers, because, I think you're right. But
and also the Earth herself is she has to kick out the bullshit at some point, right? Like,
well, and with this polar shift going on too, I hear that the northern region of the planet gets pretty friggin' hot, like historically. That part of this process, that's I guess par for the course. So hopefully, we're in one of those, like, what they call state zones or whatever, because shit is supposed to get pretty real. I just don't know where that fits in with Ascension. Is what I'm still kind of trying to wrap my head around.
You think you believe in the Ascension thing? You think we're gonna get swooped up out of here at some point?
Yeah. Well, I don't know about swooped up out of here, but I do believe in the Ascension process, that we're definitely changing from carbon-based DNA to crystalline DNA, and that's the goal is to not be in this 3D experience anymore, because I think there'll be more than likely well, historically, I guess the Earth has been through many of these cycles before, right? But from what I understand, if we're evolved to a certain point, then we're not going to be quite as dense, and part of this material sort of existence will have our light bodies, activated by then. And so I do feel like, well, even in how we're experiencing it now, when we get into those higher vibratory states, we'll kind of notice that a lot of the chaos and a lot of the drama isn't really coming into our field as much anymore, and that's kind of the way I'm appreciating that there might be a lot of truth to, I don't know exactly what that's going to look like. I know David Wilcock talks about it, and it's kind of like really wow, out there, and, we're floating around or whatever, and telekinesis and telepathic abilities or whatever. Maybe that's like way down the road when you're like super advanced. I don't know. But I do feel like we're seeing already the beginning effects of what it could potentially look like or feel like, or, how we experience it, because there's definitely a big shift since I haven't been as focused in those lower vibratory states anymore, with drama and, victimhood and just cleaning up my own field too, right? Like quitting drinking and smoking and, taking care of my nutrition and, just having that body, mind and spirit sort of understanding of ourselves, I think will lend to a lot of, we'll have an easier time, I think, with balancing and harmonizing ourselves with what's happening on the planet when we're more conscious of what we're putting into our bodies. There's some things we can't help, right? but people are really focused on those things, right? The geoengineering, the, GMOs shit in our food or whatever, but, we're more powerful than that, I think. Like, where we're going and what is possible when, we're more, evolved or enlightened. I think, our technology inside of us is far more advanced than any of this 3D, like UFOs, people talking about all that kind of stuff. Like, the technology that's within us is way more advanced than these tin can UFOs, like, cruising around, right?
Yeah. I've noticed even personally with myself with the drama that's going on outside, there's been supposedly rioting. I know there's actually been rioting in Portland and looting and stuff. But internally, I only see it kind of as show, like a TV static in the background. I just don't, it doesn't mean anything to me really. So when I'm going through my day, and I have clients in the city, I have a client who's literally like above the center of Portland where all this stuff is happening. Mm-hmm. But being that I'm not buying into it internally, it doesn't mean anything. It does not affect my day. Even the CV, coronavirus, it doesn't affect my day other than I see people wearing masks everywhere. Like,
yeah,
it just doesn't.
Disturbing, but we can.
Yeah, doesn't mean anything. And that's how almost everything here is. It's like a mental masturbation unless it's actually happening to you. Like if all this stuff isn't happening to you, that's what it is. You're you're thinking about potentialities, and of course, if you dwell on those, the negative ones, then you're increasing the odds that you slip into one of those.
Yeah. No, and I think that there's a lot of really great minds out there that are compiling information for us and showing us the science of what's happening. Because it is really difficult to explain to people who are just waking up or just, popping out of this matrix reality and going, okay, what the hell is going on here, and want to know more. It's hard to have, conversations and know where to direct people and guide people to information that you've been, kind of downloading for the last decade, for me anyways. I'm just like, I don't really have a reference point for what I understand, but, there are a lot of people out there that are doing that work, and I think it's really important to look at the science, and understand things from a deeper, so that we can appreciate things in a broader, way, because our perspective is literally everything. How we're perceiving things is what we're experiencing. Mm-hmm. Literally. And so, Bruce Lipton does a lot of the explanations of, how the biology of our beliefs, right, is creating our reality. So, we're looking through these, glasses like a filter, right? So there's going to be a lot more distortions in our perception of reality if we haven't looked at some of the science and understanding, how things really work, instead of accepting, what mainstream has taught us, and the human condition is, in a lot of ways, I think, a disease. It's a disease of our minds, right? And it's being planted there intentionally, but we don't have to perpetuate that reality anymore, with what's going on. That's almost like giving us permission, like you say, to take our power back, and start creating our own lives, not being slaves to this system anymore. It's an opportunity for, enough of us to get off of that trajectory or timeline or whatever you want to call it, and say, actually, no, we're going to create our own reality. We're taking our own power back. We're building our own communities and a new earth, that exists.
It's all exploring.
Without the supports of, corrupt systems like that, right?
I was listening. My friend sent me a series where it was supposedly Jesus talking, but it was like a new version. It was like an ACM Jesus type Jesus, or maybe a Gnostic Gospels Jesus, the one that's actually empowering. And something that he said in this series that I was listening to, which was very profound for me, was what he said was, from my perspective and or God, God the Father and my perspective, like, it does not matter if you even live or not. Like, it doesn't matter if you live, you don't have to live, you don't have to die, you don't have to buy into any of the stuff that is going on outside of you. There is no internal imperative for you to do anything whatsoever. Nothing.
Yeah.
That's what I got. Because if you can hold that internally, that mindset, nobody has any power over you. No power.
Exactly.
You can even say, I don't care if I die tomorrow. I don't care if I die right now. It doesn't mean anything to me. How are you going to be manipulated? How are you going to be manipulated if you carry that mindset?
Exactly. Yeah.
You can't.
Yeah. Well, that's why pretty much every program that exists uses fear as its basis. It's just the uncertainty, or anything that's fear based is taking your power away. They hide it under layers of like whatever, but essentially that's what it is, right? And as long as that fear is running the show, yeah, we don't have any power.
We've got to move past the Loosh farm mentality.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's all us. Like, even that aspect is showing us something. It's really what it is. Like, rich people and poor people, they exist for each other. Like, rich people exist so poor people can know what it's like to be poor. Poor people exist so rich people can know what it's like to be rich. That's what it is. Like, you have to pull yourself out of the whatever narrative that is trying to explain to you why you are in your spot. There isn't a narrative that explains that, but also it does not matter where you go in any moment. Like, at this very moment, we can do anything. You're free at all times.
Yeah.
And go buy into a narrative if you want. Go become a Muslim, or go, I don't know, like, be free though. Like, be aware that you're choosing to do something.
Yeah, we can choose whatever experience we want to have.
May not work out exactly how you want it to. Like, you have to shelf your expectations, but still. I think that's what we're relearning how to do, is how to actually embrace that freedom, because it's scary. It's scary to think I can do anything. I can talk to anybody.
Yeah,
I can have a conversation with anybody.
Responsibility for creation is too much for people sometimes, right? Mm-hmm. That's how they get locked into their belief systems, into the construct, because they'd rather have somebody else take care of that, for them. Yeah. And that's the problem. But
they still they still take the ability to complain about everything. Like, they don't just.
Of course, yeah, because they really don't understand the consciousness aspect of it, right? Yeah, that's the biggest thing. I think that's the key, and that's being how they've maintained control and power for so long, is because they have the information about our consciousness and how powerful it is, and our spirit, and however that works together, right? Mm-hmm. And so without our understanding of our consciousness, we are just really
we're shackled. We're
muted.
We're depleted.
We're living like a shell of what we could be living, right?
There was a book by what's his name? Vonnegut, Kurt Vonnegut. He's a really good author. I've read most of his books, but he had a book where all of the people were the system tried to even them out, so nobody had any advantage or disadvantage. So if you're really fast, if you're really like fast runner, they would put things around your ankles to slow you down. If you were smart, they would insert you with some serum to make you dumb. If you're too pretty, they'd put like zits on your face. They would try to even everything out, and every single person was walking around just like clinking and dragging, and so it kind of evened everything out, but it was also like so much work just to try to do that in the first place, and nobody was happy. That's kind of what I feel like we're doing here energetically, is we've taken what we are, which is essentially infinite raw power, and we found the correct ways to shackle ourselves and, we're all shackled here. There's some extent of being shackled here, but we're also trying to figure out. We're like Houdini trying to undo his own trick on himself.
Yeah, I think people, are probably still just coming out of that bubble, that reality bubble that they were living in, and, understanding that there have been forces on the planet that have been working against them, right? So they're still stuck in that drama triangle of blame and, that victimizer and victim and, that drama triangle, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're not going to understand their potential or their, power or any of it until they pop out of that drama triangle understanding reality.
There can't be any victim.
No.
There can be no more victimhood. If you are still carrying that thing inside of you, and everyone knows what it feels like, it's the same feeling as you felt when you went to church and you're like sorry for your sins and you want to go confess to some priest. It's the same feeling as, you're with your mate or your girlfriend or boyfriend and you feel like you've offended them and you have to go somehow. Like, it's that feeling. It's like a hook that grabs you.
Yeah.
You have to be able to let all those go. And I don't mean become amoral or become vicious. That's not what would happen anyway. But it's that feeling of like, oh God, I did something wrong. That's the thing that has to be let go of, because there isn't that thing that I did something wrong. That's a subjective set that you lay on top of your actions. It doesn't actually exist. You can rationalize anything. You can rationalize murder. You can rationalize enslavement of a race. Like there's a way to cognize everything.
Need to exist. It's just when one is suppressed that we see the exaggeration and the imbalance on the planet, like we do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So.
Well, that was a little over an hour. That was a lot. Thank you.
It's pretty out there too. That was a good conversation.
That's how they normally go. They're pretty out there.
Yeah.
Look up Gene Keys if you would like to see what Korenna has been sort of dabbling in. I made a profile.
Yeah.
What was the website?
Yeah. I think it is just thegenekeys.com. You'll kind of find everything from there.
Just Google Gene Keys, GeneKeys.
It's Richard Rudd. If you want to look for the book on Amazon, it's written by Richard Rudd, and he's a poet, visionary, pretty cool guy. So he studied both the human design as well as the I Ching, and this is kind of his understanding of, it's sort of a blend. He got a download of, information from. He was learning about both of those modalities and just kind of had an epiphany one day and went, oh my God, like there's 64 genes and there's also 64 hexagons in the I Ching. I wonder if that's a coincidence, right? Mm-hmm. And overlay them and went, holy crap, like this is, so it's pretty amazing. It really definitely gets into a more quantum understanding of ourselves and archetypes and blueprints, so there's a lot of hacks in there, kind of hidden hacks and stuff like that. That's really cool to get it.
That's it's interesting. I have not went too far into it. I generally, I don't do much external anything, almost nothing. But I will I will dabble in it as sort of like play, but. Also, there's 64 squares on a chessboard. I'm a chess player, so like I could take those first two and then
64 is a
put
pretty
chess
magic
into
number,
it. Yeah.
I think, too, in numerology. So there's a lot of interesting coincidences and
64 gigabyte iPhone, and then it's 128, right? Like that number is very relevant.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. But yeah, check it out. It's pretty deep. Like, one of those things that would take like a lifetime to contemplate and appreciate the fullness of it. But yeah, it's definitely helped me on my journey in understanding not only myself, but the human collective too, and what's going on with our consciousness and stuff like that. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Korenna, for coming on. It was very good. We had a nice
chatting with you, and I look forward to future ones where maybe there's I've seen some of your gatherings in the past, and there's usually some more people in the discussion. So
it's because I slept in. That's why. Well, it's hard to hold together like a sustained thing anyway, especially for me. But in this realm in general, like it's hard to sort of sustain that. It's gone pretty good. This is like the 25th version of the Snail Collective, or what was supposed to be that. So it's time for it to evolve a little bit. But yeah, I've had a lot of different people on, and I'm sure you could hop on one of the roundtable discussions. I'm sure that would be good.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah. So, thank you. Thanks, Korenna.
Yep. And have a good Sunday.
Okay, you too.
Yeah. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you everyone who joined from the YouTube side. And yeah, go check out Gene Keys. It's pretty interesting. I think I still have the profile up here. This is the guy, Richard Rudd.
It was in 1996.
That's what he sounds like. And this is my profile actually looked quite a bit like I was able to identify with a lot of the markers that it came out with. So yeah, it's sort of like astrology mixed with the genes. Not sure exactly how, but it goes into depth. I gave my birth date and my actual birth time, so somehow I came out with all this stuff. Anywho, thanks again, peoples, and I'll see you when I see you. Peace!